Wind arrived before time. When my paws touched Rapa Nui, the ocean seemed endless. Then I saw them, stone faces aligned like sentinels staring at the horizon. It wasn't beauty, it was warning. A question carved in silence. What does a giant dream cost? The island is small, isolated, surrounded by thousands of kilometers of water. Here, each tree counts. Each harvest decides the next month, yet someone chose to raise colossi. Not one, hundreds. I felt this wasn't just art, it was faith, politics, and competition. The Moai weren't decoration. They were ancestors in stone, bodies of mana, prestige, and protection. They stood on Ahu, facing the villages, as if watching the living. At places like Anakena, that stone was declaration. We belong. We rule. The secret begins there. Rapa Nui doesn't fit simple morality. It's a story of choices under pressure, adaptation and error. On islands, everything accelerates. When the world ends in the sea, each decision weighs more. I walked between volcanic rocks and low grasses, imagining the island before. Forests, birds, shade and timber for better canoes. I felt the first fracture. On an island so remote, losing the forest isn't a problem. It's a limit, with no mercy, while stone faces stared at the void. I understood. I wasn't there to see statues falling. I was there to see how an entire society could be consumed by what it chose to celebrate. The first Rapa Nui arrived by what seems impossible: open ocean Polynesian navigation, guided by stars and memory. The exact date is debated, but evidence points to the 13th or early 14th century. They didn't discover the island, they reached it. And that changes everything. They brought plants, animals, and farming techniques. In a place so isolated, each choice had to be calculated. But human decisions are rarely purely rational. Life fills with symbols, and symbols, when they become dispute, change a community's fate. At first, the island offered resources: timber, birds, fertile soil in places. Population grew, clans spread, like the Miru among the most prestigious. And, as in many places, power became language. Whoever has more commands more. Here, more could be an ancestor larger than the neighbors. Rano Raraku was the volcanic quarry, the island's stone heart. Moai emerged from rock as if released. Some remained unfinished, as if time had interrupted the work mid-gesture. When a society invests energy in monuments, it does so for deep reasons: cohesion, faith, memory, prestige. The problem: monuments don't eat. Monuments don't replant trees. And on Rapa Nui, where the world ends in the sea, every monumental choice exacts a price elsewhere. I observed collective work, chance, organization. It was impressive. But my senses caught the shadow behind. The higher the Moai, the greater the invisible cost. What doesn't appear in ritual but appears in the future. The Moai became competition between clans. A larger Ahu demanded more people, more food, more coordination. That proved strength. You couldn't just have an ancestor, you had to have one that surpassed your neighbors. The monument was argument. Moving a Moai was a social act. The exact method is debated, but the fact is it required logistics, rope, people, and time. Time is the resource hunger hates most. Each day spent on stone is a day not spent maintaining the world that sustains the stone. Some Moai received pukau, reddish hats of volcanic scoria. That raised prestige and weight. The more complex the image, the stronger the message. We succeeded. But nature isn't impressed by messages. It only responds to impact. Rapa Nui's paradox. The monument that united also pressured. To raise symbols, you need abundance or extreme discipline. When born from competition, it becomes collective exhaustion. I saw calloused hands, stone tools, dust in the wind. I saw pride. I saw purpose. And I saw a question forming behind the effort. How long? The island didn't grow. Population grew. Ambition grew. The bill grew too. A monument becomes risk when it stops being celebration and becomes obligation. When stopping means losing status. When stone rules the clan. Then it's not the Moai that stand. It's the entire society that puts itself in danger. The forest began to disappear. Firewood, agriculture, construction, transport. But it wasn't a button pressed one day. It was process. And processes are dangerous because they seem normal while happening. The first fallen tree doesn't frighten. The last one does. Uncomfortable detail. Polynesian rats brought in canoes may have prevented palm regeneration by eating seeds. On islands, small things become historical force. One rodent changes an ecosystem. Without trees, the island lost soil protection, lost organic matter, lost timber for larger canoes. This changed diet, mobility, risk. It's not that the sea vanishes. It becomes more distant when technology shrinks. Then came the Rapa Nui response. Agricultural intelligence. Stone gardens, lithified coverage, manavai protecting plants from wind and preserving moisture. This isn't end. This is adaptation. Except adaptation usually arrives when the threat is already breathing down your neck. The island reorganized. Less timber, more technique, less forest, more stone. Curious. When trees vanish, societies tend to harden. Rapa Nui was stone by calling, but calling doesn't prevent exhaustion. The critical point isn't cutting trees, it's losing flexibility. When everything becomes expensive, food, transport, materials, any crisis becomes social earthquake. And a society of monument doesn't survive chaos. At some point, the island began to shift. The centrality of Moai weakened, disputes increased. Then the most symbolic gesture happened. Moai started to fall. Toppling an ancestor is declaring war on the system it represents. Not all fell at once, not for one reason. There are signs of internal conflict, rivalry between groups, later accounts mixing memory and trauma. What matters? What once protected became toppled. The symbolic order was broken. High on Rano at Orongo, another logic emerges. The Birdman cult. Annual ritual competition for legitimacy. The island trades permanent monument for temporary title. You can't sustain colossi anymore. When resources tighten, power changes form. It doesn't disappear, it adapts. But political adaptation doesn't always reduce suffering. It just reorganizes who rules and who loses. I walked among toppled Moai and felt a sadness not my own. A civilization doesn't topple its gods for fun. It topples because something already crumbled inside. Symbolic collapse is usually the last visible chapter of an old crisis. Yet I saw no end. I saw persistence. Adapted agriculture, life continuing. Rapa Nui isn't instant extinction. It's attrition. And attrition frightens because it seems slow. Until the account settles. On the 5th of April, 1722, Dutch arrived, Jacob Roggeveen. For those living in isolation, contact isn't encounter, it's impact. New diseases, new violence, new exchanges. Then others came, like the Spanish expedition of 1770. The world's history rarely enters gently. It enters like strong wind. European accounts describe Moai still standing in certain places. In following decades, more and more statues were toppled. And by late 19th century, practically none remained upright on platforms. The fall was gradual, as if the island finished a gesture already begun. Contact also brings misunderstanding. For many visitors, those faces became exotic mystery. For the Rapa Nui, they were living history, even toppled. The outside world rarely understood the internal price of a symbol. Important turn. Popular imagination says society already collapsed before contact, but recent archaeology suggests something more complex. There's evidence of continuity, adaptation, functioning social organization under pressure. Total collapse might be partly a retrospective lens, a simple way to explain difficult history. But historical reality is rarely simple. Rapa Nui wasn't just parable. It was people trying to survive extreme conditions, then facing external shocks. I saw when the world became too small for the island, not from lack of sea, but from excess of history arriving. When isolation breaks, even the cleverest resistance becomes fragile. The most devastating blow came later. Peruvian raids in the mid-19th century, a form of forced blackbirding, seized over 1,000 Rapa Nui. Few returned, some brought disease. A society can adapt to wind. It's harder to adapt to kidnapping. Web or tuit. Web. Then outbreaks like smallpox did the rest. The population fell from thousands to barely 100, 111 people to be precise, in 1877. This isn't moral consequence of internal choices. It's external violence, concrete, added to a system's wear. Web, second web, trinaten web. Rapa Nui's secret isn't in easy sentences. It's in ambiguity. There was real environmental pressure, real internal conflict, real cultural transformation, and real colonial shock. Reducing it to they destroyed themselves is convenient, but incomplete. Web. The island shows two stories: how symbols consume resources, and how peoples persist even under pressure. Resilience isn't heroic. It's quiet stubbornness, day after day. Today, many Moai were re-erected in restorations, but stone doesn't restore centuries of trauma. Lives taken, territory controlled, culture pressured. The world loves ancient mysteries. It avoids facing modern damage. Web. I stood there, looking at the sea, thinking of what haunts me in travels. Time doesn't erase. It covers with layers. And on Rapa Nui, each layer is dispute between memory and narrative. Monumental ambition is language. Today it can be stone, steel, concrete, data, consumption. The name changes. The mechanism stays. Compete for grandeur as if the environment were infinite. Rapa Nui shows a cruel limit. In closed systems, everything is accounting. You ignore the bill for years, but you don't cancel the invoice. And when it arrives, it won't negotiate with pride or prestige. Meanwhile, humans aren't only destroyers. They invent technique, reorganize cultivation. Stone gardens, clever response to difficult earth. A people can err and still fight for balance. Collapse is easy and dangerous language. It suggests everything ended from moral failure. And that erases external violence, erases complexity, erases resistance. Sometimes the greatest collapse isn't internal, it's imposed. I, who only watch and don't touch, feel old unease seeing the Moai. They seem to watch not the sea, but our tendency to repeat patterns. Build too much, extract too much, believe too much in our own exception. Maybe that's Rapa Nui's true secret. The Moai didn't just fall, they warned. The question remains, even with the statue on the ground. What are you building? And what are you consuming to build it? If you want to keep traveling with me through moments when humanity built wonders and paid prices nobody wanted to count, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Time guard stories that seem distant but always return disguised as modernity. I'll be there to observe them with you. Until the next leap,